This is Actors Call Time. And now, here's your host, Carissa Mitchell.
Good evening and welcome to Actors Call Time, or ACT, with Carissa Mitchell. That's me, Carissa Mitchell. Welcome. We're so glad to be here tonight. We're in the Box Studios in downtown Albuquerque, and we are so excited to be with you again tonight. And if you're interested in continuing to watch this, it turns into a YouTube video later, so you can tell your friends and watch it later. So much is happening. We're in the state of New Mexico. We are headed towards opening up. Our numbers are good, and we're inching towards that. And film production is in full speed. Things are happening we're going to be talking about tonight. We're got the mask things and all that kind of stuff, and now I have hundreds of people that want to have lunch with me, and so I'm still a little bit of anxiety about going out in public and seeing people, but we'll get to everybody, and we'll probably start doing some First Wednesdays and things like that, and talk about things. This is kind of like First Wednesday for me, but anyway, it's we're gonna have a really great night. We've got some comments already. Who do we have?
First, we've got some people from all over watching. We got Laramie saying howdy, hey.
Hi, Laramie. Disney buddy.
We've got Patsy Tuba from Victoria, British Columbia, Canada.
Nice.
TJ, hey TJ from Albuquerque.
Hi, TJ.
And we've got a hello from Jason Connolly. He's happy to be here.
Great.
And hello, Christy from Rob LaCrone.
Yes.
Christy's not in studio.
She's
today.
not. She will be next time. I made her promise that.
All right.
Great. Well, we're so glad that you're watching from all over. That's amazing. That makes me so happy. I did want to talk a little bit. I get a lot of questions these days, especially now that things are opening up a little bit. People are writing to me and saying, hey, I'm going to go to LA for a vacation. Or they say, I have a friend who lives in LA, so can you submit me in the LA market? I represent them in New Mexico or something like that. And I just have to reiterate again to everybody that working in the local markets is very different than working in the LA or the New York markets. It's a completely different animal. And just because you're going on vacation to LA or you know somebody that lives there or you're going to be there for a few weeks, I get people that say, hey, I'm going to be there for a few weeks. Is there anyone I should meet there? Any casting directors I should meet? And those are really kind of inappropriate questions. Really what you need to do is you need to work on your resume. The local markets are an incredible place to build your resume, to get co-stars, to get used to auditioning, to really get to know the local casting directors. There's so many fewer casting directors, and they are so kind and loving. We're going to talk to one later, the best. And so really working in the local market to get your resume built up is the best thing that you can do. And then you're going to need LA quality headshots. You're going to need clips of everything because it's an order of magnitude of difference with how many people are submitted in LA, how you get noticed in LA. In New Mexico, we can talk to, Marie's in the live studio audience. How many people do you get submitted for one role in New Mexico?
Well, it depends on the role, but my last submission was between 2 and 250 for one role, but in the same breakdown, I had 8 for another role.
Okay.
You want to repeat that?
Okay, so 250 for one role on one television show in New Mexico. My casting directors in LA say it's 4,000, 6,000 people submitted for one line on one episode of one TV show, a co-star. So in order to get noticed in the LA or the New York markets, you've got to really have a very wide, you either have to be very specific in who you are and be well marketed in who you are in that specificity. Specificity, thank you. Or you need to have a really nice body of work coming from a local market. So I guess what I'm saying is please don't ask me because you're going on vacation in LA if you can be submitted in LA. It takes years to get auditions in LA and to book. Here's a comment.
Matt McReady says auditioning in LA is a blood sport.
Well, I can't. He's not wrong. He's not wrong. It is a really difficult thing. But I have to say, just to brag a little bit, 2021 this year, my LA branch has had more auditions, more bookings. We've had guest stars. We've had recurring on television shows. I'm so proud of my actors that work in LA. We're going to be talking to some today as well, and we've talked to some in the past. But it is really a different animal. And so keep working in the local markets. If you have an agent in Atlanta or New Orleans or Chicago or New Mexico or any of the other local markets, keep plugging away at it if you're sort of in the beginning stages of it. So I just wanted to encourage you to work in the local market. We're going to talk to some people here that actually moved, decided to move to a local market to work and to build their resume. We're going to be talking about that too. And honestly, New Mexico is a great place to live. I work in LA and I work in New Mexico, and I choose to live here in New Mexico because it's just way better. I love going on the plane to go out to LA, and then I love getting on the plane to go back to New Mexico. And so while things are still in the self-tape world and the virtual world, things are still sort of in that sort of flux. So there's really no need to, be in any certain place until it's time for you to book it. Especially with COVID, you have to be places early for COVID tests, and we've got some horror stories about that we're going to talk about a little bit too, about schedule changes and things like that with COVID. She's laughing over here because she knows what I'm going to ask her about. So anyway, we've got some more comments.
One more.
Yes, Kristen is doing our comments tonight. Thank you.
Jennifer is wondering, are the numbers similar for minor submissions? So
I don't know what a minor submission would be.
I don't know, maybe like a
co-star?
under 5.
Under
or
5?
a-
Yeah, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about under 5 sort of submissions, one line or co-star sort of things. And so those numbers really show you how you can really get noticed in in the local market in New Mexico in a great way. And we're going to talk a little bit more about how self-tapes have made casting directors be able to see more actors in a day as well. So I've just spoiled everything at this point that we're going to talk about today. Do we have any other comments or anything we want to go to? I just want to say while she's looking, if you have comments at all for our guests or for me during the show tonight, please put them in there. We're looking at the comments. We're going to bring them up after each guest. If you want to ask one of my guests a question or ask me a question, I'll tell you anything. I'll tell you probably too much. So any more comments?
This guest might know our guest tonight, Craig Phones, is moving from Arizona to Mexico June 1st.
All right. Well, welcome to New Mexico. That's great.
Oh, and then, okay, so here's some clarification from Jennifer.
Okay.
She's talking about kids, as far as minors.
Oh, minors. Oh, okay. Honestly, I have to say that throughout the pandemic, all of my child actors have now turned like 35. They all grew like crazy. And so there's always a need for more kids to come up. I have to tell you, though, sometimes the parents can be the detriment to the child's career. So don't be weird and don't be crazy. Don't live vicariously through your children because they'll resent you and they'll be terrible at it. So really, really work with your child, to really determine whether this is something that they want. And what I always tell parents about children who think they want to be actors, have them do background work on a movie so they actually get to go on a movie set and see what it's like to actually be on a movie set. Because a lot of kids think they want to be an actor and they don't know what it's actually like to be on a movie set. And it's a 50-50 split. Like kids are either like, that was the best and the coolest thing. And I was watching the director and I was doing all that stuff. And it was so cool and I want to do it. And it's very exciting. I want to do it again. And then there's others that are like, that was boring. So anyway, we're going to have more talk about children actors on another show again. We got another comment?
Yes. Brandon Christopher Atencio says, will you sign an artist that isn't local to New Mexico? And how can we get in front of you to audition for your agency?
Okay, those are two loaded questions.
Big questions.
Loaded questions. So my guest later is a casting director, and we were already talking about this. It used to be sort of like you can work local hire in a local if you don't live here and things like that. But with COVID, we've had to stop the fudging. We've had to be absolutely honest about where everyone is. In LA, the breakdowns, I would say 90% of the breakdowns say must be currently in Los Angeles in order to be submitted for this role, or must be here in New Mexico. We're going to talk about this again later because with the COVID testing that happens and the protocols that are changing weekly, we don't know. They might call you. You might get booked for a role that works Friday, and they might call you Tuesday and say you need to be here this afternoon for a COVID test, and they're not here. And so we've got all sorts of things like that to deal with. So it's really better to work in a market that you live in. Lots of people are moving here from Los Angeles and from other places. And so that's the answer to the first question. The second question was, how do you get seen in front of an agency? Every agency, at least in New Mexico, has a different sort of way of submitting for representation. And I have to tell you, I have a specific way it's on my website. I have a form on my website. And the act of submitting for representation is a test to see if you can follow directions. So, sort of thinking outside the box and trying to get my attention will only be a detriment to your success in getting with the agency. So anyway, just look at the websites for that. Okay, so please continue to put comments in the chat if you have questions for my guests or for me. And I am so incredibly honored to have my first guests here tonight, Richard and Cindy Lippert. They are a married couple. They have the same last name, so that works out pretty good. And they have actually moved here from the Phoenix area to New Mexico to work specifically, and they've been doing pretty well at it. So and they're kind of our biggest fans. They've been commenting on all our shows, and so I really wanted to have them on. So Richard and Cindy, welcome. Here they are. I'm so happy to have them. I have so many questions for you guys because you have so many things going on, and we have not seen each other in so long, and there's so much to catch up about. But I just want to talk about the elephant in the room. You are mature people. Is that how we're going to call it?
Age-wise.
Age-wise. Yeah, I don't ever plan on being mature, emotionally or something. But you are mature actors, and you've come to this sort of life, this acting life a little bit later than a lot of people have. And so I have so many questions about that. Did you figure this out separately, or did you both decide to do this? I want to start with Cindy. How did you decide to be an actor?
Odd you asked. Richard was a stunt driving instructor in LA, and he came home from one trip and he said, "Would you ever be interested in taking an acting class with me?" And I thought, sure, sounded like fun. I thought it was going to be like underwater basket weaving.
I was going to say, is that like taking a French class or
Exactly.
yoga or something?
I thought it'd be great. And I thought, I'm a retired minister. I used to run churches. And I thought, this will be great. And I said, but I don't want to memorize anything. So he said, well, we could do improv. And I said, I could do improv. And I thought, this is great. It'll be easy for me, but it'll be hard for him. He was great. I sucked. I was awful. I quit after 3 months. And, he said, I love it. I said, I hate it so bad. And he said, what about it? What about it is good? I said, the drive home, So I liked everything about being in an acting studio except the class. And anyway, so part of that whole thing, he and I had really not ever discussed this before. I had burned out in ministry, and it was like I knew I wanted to do something, but I didn't know what. And I got hooked. There was enough there that I agreed to take another class. And then before we knew it, it was 5 nights a week, privates in the daytime, workshops, master classes. We read everything we could get our hands on. We studied everybody's performance, and we just went down the rabbit hole. We just dove in.
Uh-huh.
We've probably got 10,000 hours of something. So yeah,
of something.
Yeah.
And what were you doing besides stunt driving? What else were you doing before acting?
Well, right before that, I owned a pretty substantial, I would call it a human capital management company, where we did a lot of executive coaching, some life coaching, career transition work, leadership development work. And then I had gotten to it. I was also raced Formula 2000. I'd won a national championship in Formula 2000.
What is that?
It's open wheel. It's kind of like Indy cars, but smaller.
Okay. You're driving.
And
okay.
and decided not to defend the championship, was looking for other things to do, flipped through a channel on TV for the Red Bull Air races, and I commented, I know how to do that. And I found out where the red line was. So I decided to go do stunt driving and did that for a while. And that just kind of segued where I was doing stuff. The guy I taught with were union, and I wasn't at the time. So anytime a show would come off, they wanted us to do something, I had to do it. I wasn't comfortable in front of the camera. So I came home and said, hey, how do you feel about taking the class? I'd been around a little bit more. I'd lived in LA. My neighbor was a gentleman by the name of Ron Schwery, who won the Academy Award for Ordinary People.
Oh, okay.
And was one of the last producers on Medium. And I got my first credit actually in a movie with him. And I'm not going to say what year it was. A long time.
Wasn't our friend Basil Hoffman in Ordinary People?
Yeah,
from the live studio audience, we're asking questions.
So that
yes.
kind of segued in. And once I got involved, and for me, it was just like, oh, this is cool. And typical, just OCD kicked in. And, was.
Well, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, Cindy, you and I share a past of ministry and working in the church
Yeah.
and things like that. This is a leading question, but how did your past train you for being an actor?
Well, I thought it was going to be a lot more informative. And what I had a talk with one coach years ago, I said, I don't understand why this is so hard for me. And he explained to me that being in the pulpit, the minister is the show. And when I would go off notes, when I would riff, when I would speak extemporaneously, I controlled that. And as you know, with improv, there are rules of engagement, and so I had a steep learning curve in healthy respect. I always respected actors as ministers because I believe that acting and the films and TV and all of it and plays are some of the greatest non-medical therapeutic modalities that we have available. And if you don't believe it, this past year during COVID, where would we have all been without Netflix?
That's true.
Yeah.
So
it has been, people have asked me, how did you get from ministry to acting? Very easily.
That's great.
It's just another.
Yeah. That's great. What about you, Richard? Like how were you prepared from your past into translating that into acting?
I think a lot of it just brought a lot of life experience to it. Kind of look at I had to draw the line, that everybody under say 50 is cute. Everybody over 50 has life experience and character,
Well, I have to say you guys have both, but I'm biased.
It just informed. I came up coming out of the military. I came through a career that was in sales. So, a lot of, personal interaction, a lot of, learning to be a leader, growing up through the ranks in the company, growing up to be CEO and on the board of companies, and ultimately having my own organizations. So that all prepares you. And then I think the relevant thing of it, though, is once we made the decision to do this, a lot of people might look at it and say, well, they're at this certain age and they decided to do this and this is their hobby. And that's as far from the truth as you could possibly get. For both of us, this is a career, it is a job, and we are absolutely as serious and hardworking as this as the 18-year-old or the 20-year-old that's coming up and trying to build a career. We may not have the opportunity to have a 50-year career, but by golly, we're going to work as hard at it as we possibly can to get as much out of it as we possibly can.
Absolutely. And I just personally, I have to say that you sort of came onto the scene. I rep you in both cities, and you guys, I never have to worry about the quality of your auditions. I never have to worry about you being on set. You guys have both booked some incredible parts. Cindy's currently recurring on a TV show that we will be finding out about. Recurring role is amazing. And so I'm so proud of you. And with me, I'm always asking, I have to ask this question: what drives you in your acting? Because there's fame, there's money, there's acknowledgement, there's success, like the art of it. What are the things that drive you as an actor?
Part of it is the art of it. It's the challenge of, I'm also a painter and digital artist. And so part of it is the artistry of the craft and using these human instruments as the canvas, which is the most challenging thing that you can't imagine. Anybody who's never taken an acting class cannot begin to imagine how challenging it is. But the other thing is the therapeutic factor for me, because it's always about helping people hurt a little less. I'm always going to default to that, fortunately
That's a lifelong,
or unfortunately.
yeah.
It just is. And so for me, telling stories, and we have stories that haven't begun to be told yet, that part of that artistry. And it also gives you something to look forward to. Every day you wake up, you don't know what the day's going to bring.
You don't know if your agent's going to call you or do I have any auditions coming up? Is a great question. We'll talk about that later. Richard, what about you? What drives you as an actor?
There's a lot to it. One is the challenge and the discovery that goes with it, and being able to tell a story and find a character. But underlying that is the self-discovery part of it, the learning so much about yourself. And, I made the comment before about life experience. That also is some pretty heavy baggage that you carry after carrying a lot of years. And to learn to bring that to the surface and recognize it. One key thing I learned, about myself was coming up, the military background and the corporate background and car racing and stunt driving, is that, hey, it's what you see is what you get. This is me. I'm out. I don't care. I got in this business. I am the most neurotic, insecure person that has ever walked on a stage in this industry, I think, because everything just is, do I have this right? Is it the right time? Do I have to be there right now? What do we need to do this? How did this go? Was it good enough? Can I do it again? And, but it's just that discovery of the thing that lives within yourself and having to learn to find that and deal with it and then sort through all the other baggage, but the creativity of it. And I have to mention the community. Just the people to be around, some of the people that are in this audience.
Yes, we do have a
others.
live studio audience tonight.
And,
Woo! Yes. Finally.
Yeah, but the community is just incredible. Just the whole process and see what you can accomplish and what you can build is tell a story.
That's awesome. Is there any sort of sense coming up from like having, successful businesses, being in the military? Is there any of that sort of flushes up of wanting to win or wanting to be the best or
yeah,
some sort of benchmark?
Yeah, in racing, the person who comes in second is the first loser. Yeah.
That's the hard thing because we were both trained in sales. I was a young executive before I got into ministry, and the whole thing, our mentality is you do X, Y, Z, and you get certain results. If you don't get those results, then you have to go into a discovery of how can you make sure that doesn't happen again. Acting is a completely different world. And there's a whole thing, I don't know if it's appropriate to talk about right now, but there's a whole thing that I've recently discovered about auditions. And we kept looking at it.
We're looking at some of your clips right now while you're
Oh,
talking.
no.
Keep talking.
That an audition is a job interview, and everybody keeps saying, it's not a job interview, it's not a job interview. And yet everybody's like, oh, I don't know if I got the part. And it occurred to me that in business, we used to say, if you have a job that you love 80% of and you don't like 20, that's a good job. Well, with acting, we love that minuscule moment that we're either on set or doing a scene study or in class doing a scene study. But the majority of time, if we're lucky, we're prepping for an audition or we're doing auditions or we're studying and
right,
honing.
there's things that happen.
So there's 80% of that time that nobody seems to like. And when you watch enough of these interviews with top tier actors, they all say, I hate audition. And it occurred to me, we have to find the joy in audition.
That's great.
And
that's good.
It's a huge shift.
That's the job. We're like so like running out of time already, but I did want to like briefly let you tell us about your business that you started right at the start of the pandemic, which I probably need a phone call to you guys about. But could you give us a brief explanation, and we could put the link to their business up as well while you're talking, but give us a little explanation of your business.
Well, I mentioned earlier, we had the Human Capital Management Company, and that was built as a company that had to grow and do things. So the pandemic, once my non-compete was up, we wanted to be able to help people and have a business, but also free from the constraints of we've got to do this corporate thing and it's got to grow and do other things. So it does what it does. But we focus on coaching people, both in business, which have a lot of experience doing that, and a lot of clients in, and also coaching people in life. And there's a lot of that walking around out there. But as you started, we are mature, so we have a lot of life experience with that. So we want to focus on that. We also get into spiritual counseling. We have a lady who handles substance abuse for us. We do not do substance abuse counseling, but can help get somebody to stop enabling or to get people into treatment. And she's an absolutely amazing individual. We have marketing people on staff, one of whom is here this evening.
Hello.
And other people dealing with trauma. And then we get into the general business side where we do a lot of getting it back into corporate work, where we're doing, Hogan 360 evaluations, strategic planning, more executive coaching, and all those things. But fundamentally to it is that we also have an ability we can be very flexible on our costs. We did offer through COVID for people that just needed to talk was either pro bono or whatever you can pay. We just want to help people.
That's good. We had several conversations over
Yeah.
COVID, and I need to come
Yeah.
back. There it is, sagecoachingandcounseling.com.
Yeah.
So let's go to the comments and see if anyone has any questions
Yeah.
for you guys. Kristen, what's happening on the chat?
We've got John McGara says, thank you for your service, Richard. I'm retired from the Army as well, and have been told I don't look military enough when I submit.
What do you think?
Oh,
I mean,
wow.
there are some times where I'm like, I do know, that a certain actor is a veteran, but they don't quite look like they would be serving currently, so unless that's part of the storyline. I'm answering a question for Richard, but it's part of the storyline. But you have gone out for lots of like military type roles because you've kept yourself sort of looking like it's believable.
I think what I would respond to that on is don't get hung up on the military part. I think one of the mistakes a lot of people make is they try to decide themselves what their casting is. And it's not your choice to make. It's how do people see you? And that's going to be your agent and others are going to tell you, these are the kind of roles you should be going for because this is how the world sees you. If you get lucky enough and you get one that meets the military, I guess stereotype, great. But don't limit yourself by thinking that.
That's such a good advice. That is one of those things when I send an audition out and an actor says, I don't fit that part. And I'm like, well, the casting director asked for you. I submitted you and the casting director asked for you. So why don't you go ahead? And you don't know, they might be looking at all sorts of different other roles, but just sent you this one. And we can talk to the casting director about that. Really great note about that. Do we have any other comments, Kristen?
Yeah, so the intuitive actress.
Oh, yes.
Saying, Cindy, tell us how your career change helped you book.
Oh,
And you were
Okay.
you were one of my inspirations.
Is that right?
Yes, for going gray. Yes.
well, I'll try to make it quick. I was in an acting studio and the office manager and I were talking, general manager and I were talking one day, and I had only been in about 6 months into my acting training, and she was fussing about her hair and her agent wanted her to change the color. And I said, well, what about me? Because I still had it dark. And she just took a deep breath and said, well, women in your demographic do really well if they're gray. I said, that's it.
I'm in.
That's it. I'm in. And I chopped it all off so that it would go gray quick. And I got signed at Ford just right after the transition.
Mm-hmm.
So
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Do we have any other questions?
Yeah, so we've got a question
Rob?
from Rob. He's considering moving from LA to New Mexico. When you moved to New Mexico, did you move to Albuquerque or Santa Fe, and why?
Albuquerque, definitely Albuquerque.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think more of the whole infrastructure of the industry is here. I think it's easier to get community here. This is where the business is. And frankly, it's substantially less expensive to be in Albuquerque than in Santa Fe.
That's true. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, do we have any other comments?
Just, I wanted to add, Malcolm said, I love her honesty. It's refreshing and hilarious.
Aww. And thank you, Malcolm, for watching every time. But I do appreciate your honesty as well, and your outlook on things, and your perspective is really inspiring to me. I really appreciate both of you. Thank you so much for being here. And I'm sure we have more to talk about another time, but we really appreciate you being here. Thank you so much. I love you guys. Thank you. Woo! Yes, to our studio audience. And now, is it time? Is it time?
And for what?
Is it time for Christy's do's and don'ts?
We don't have.
Oh no, we don't have any do's and don'ts. Oh my gosh.
Last week's do's and don'ts.
We could play last week's do's and don'ts.
Do's and don'ts.
Let's do it. There's
Respond to our audition email as soon as you get it and have read through it to confirm or decline your audition. Don't have dim lighting, a grainy recording, or poor sound on your self-tapes.
thank you, Christy. Those are always good do's and don'ts. And you're going to come on this show soon. She keeps saying, no, no, no. No, she's going to come on the show. Christy runs the LA office, and she's amazing at what she does, and she's got lots of good things to talk about. So everybody, one quick question. Yes.
We have multiple people asking, where did you get that t-shirt?
Oh, it's so funny that you asked that. This is my El Nino Baby Yoda sugar skull, and you can get that on TeePublic. TeePublic.com at Box Dug Art is the storefront that you can get it on. There's lots of really cool New Mexican. There just happen to like have that here. It's also one of my producers is the designer. And so Doug Montoya is the designer. I just have to say I did pay for this myself. I did not get this for free. It's not a sponsorship, but maybe someday I'll have a sponsorship for Box Dug Art at teepublic.com. Anyway, thank you for that. Appreciate it. So my next guest was actually on our first show, and she was remote because we were still trying to be safe and, you know, all that kind of stuff. But now she's here in person. We had another guest planned for today. Alejandro Montoya Marin was supposed to be here, but he had a scheduling conflict, and so Marie graciously accepted the spot. So Marie, welcome, casting director. We're so glad that she's here. Again, if you have a question for her, put it in the chat and we'll come to it. So I did a little bit of research, and you have like almost 100 credits as a casting associate, and now you're sort of branching out on your own and you're getting casting director casting director things and doing it yourself. How is that going? How is making that transition from associate to director going for you?
Friggin' awesome. I'm having a lot of fun. I mean, it's been really fun being part of a team for so long, and it's more fun sort of leading the team. And I even hesitate to say that because the team that I have right now is so friggin' awesome that we really do just operate as a team. So I don't even want to say I'm leading it. It's like we're all on an equal playing field. We have a really great office right now. So,
that's great.
Yeah, I love it. I love where we've come. So yeah.
That's good. So tell us a little bit about what it's like to work as a local casting director, and what is the relationship between like the LA casting director? How does all of that sort of? I know that's probably a 3-day explanation, but like how closely do you work with the LA or the New York casting directors?
I've been working exceptionally close with my LA casting team on the projects that I've been on, and I love that. I being an associate, I wasn't working as tight because I was sort of following a lead, and now that I'm
you're it.
Charge, I don't even know how to say that. Now that it's my game, my rodeo, it's been awesome. So we have a lot of connection. I've sort of changed things up in the way that I always envisioned that I would do them when I was, captain of the boat, so to speak. And so it's working out really well. I'm constantly in touch with LA casting. I'm constantly in touch with producers. It's a lot of like, should we do this? X, Y, and Z. What are we going to do here? How is that? Or do you want me to do this? And I'd be happy to look for that. And well, wait, don't just see LA actors for this. We've got some exceptional actors in New Mexico who can knock that, guest star out of the park.
Absolutely, which we are so appreciative of you seeing the local people. Oh, look, there's some more drinks. This is actually called
drink refill.
Drink refill. This is actually called Drinks with Carissa and Marie is what this is actually called. Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers. I love it. So we all know that what I think everybody knows that you get hired on a job, and then you get the you send out the breakdowns. You figure out either you're given the roles or you create the character breakdowns, and then the agents start sending you submissions. What is the first thing? Do you watch them as they come in, or do you sort of wait until they've all sort of trickled in, or what is your process for looking through the sea of postage stamp faces?
Well, it depends on how tight my time crunch is, really. And generally speaking, I know what's going to be on the breakdown or what's on my breakdown before you've received it as an agent, because I'm waiting for approvals, or, you know, we've already had meetings and I know what roles I'm looking for. So I usually have already created a list of my own, like,
yes.
oh, I don't want to, you know, don't forget, we want to see this person, and we saw that person. And the producer was like, don't forget to bring this person back that we saw here because we want to see them for another role. So it's sort of this entire process that builds. And then you submit and I go in, I'm like, oh yeah, that's a great idea. Why didn't I think of that? And there's this person. And so it's definitely a collaboration, so to speak.
Well, I love that collaboration. That's the creative part of my job, is like envisioning people in those roles. I get this question a lot from people. When an agent submits a new actor that you've never seen before, what is your process for sort of trying to decide whether they should be brought in to be seen for a role if you've never seen them before? What do you go through in order to say, yeah, let's bring that person in?
Well, firstly, definitely headshot, resume, if they have any media, so reels and clips. And then also largely, obviously, because our New Mexico film community is so small, I put a lot of weight in what my agent says, you know, and it's like, you obviously advocate hugely for your talent, and as do most of the agents. So it's like, hey, we just signed so-and-so and they're here and they've done this and we'd love to get you in for, you know, so it's that. But there definitely has to be a good, like, actors access profile, so to speak. I need to be able to go somewhere and see what you've done and what you're doing. And a lot of times I'll get like, oh, this person's great. And I'll click on actors access and it's like a picture and then it's like their height and their eye color. And I'm like,
no resume, no clips.
And honestly, they may have just forgotten to update it or something, but I do have to bypass those because there are so many. Again, the test with you is like, did you follow the instructions when you submit? And for me, it's like, you have to have all the materials in hand for me to look at them. If you can't get that in order, then I have to move on to somebody else who's busted their butt to get great headshots and has been working as background or stand-in, or, you know, has done indie films. And I want to reward those people who have been working really hard at this and have proven themselves. So
that's great. Yeah. So the note about that, actors, is get your marketing materials and your actors access and all those things in order. You don't want to get bypassed. For me, I think there's a big like yellow thing that says this actor has no resume that you see, and you don't want to be that actor, you know, that has that little mark under their picture. Another question that I get a lot is, do you see non-union actors for SAG roles? You know, the Taft-Hartley process doesn't really happen in LA as much. What do you do when you're looking at somebody who might not have as much experience but might be perfect?
I will see them. I almost never look at whether or not somebody is SAG-AFTRA or if they're SAG eligible, or it's just like, I look at the resume, I look at the experience. It's like, they've got a great look. Let's bring them in. Let's see what they can do. And sometimes people have nothing, but it's like, gosh, they've got a really great look for it. And on the flip side, sometimes people have a huge resume and it's like, they're just not right for it. I'm sorry. I don't care what they've done and who they've worked with. Like, this isn't what we need for this right now.
Right. And the thing that that always impresses me is how fast you have to work. Like, you're under such a deadline. And so trying to make all these decisions like really quickly. I did have another question, like, what happens when you see a new person, like an agent has signed an actor and you see that you bring them, you're like, oh, this person is new, let's see what they've got. And it's not quite to the level that you were looking at. Like, what do you do? Do you throw them back in the pond to grow a little bit, or just forget about them? What do you do when they've had sort of a bad introduction?
Well, I think that a lot of that has to do with, I mean, luckily in our industry, a lot of that is reading people, right? So I know a lot of times if I bring people into an audition who I've never seen, or, you know, and the agent has been like, this person's great, please see them. And I bring them in, I'm like, okay. Sometimes it's just they're nervous. Sometimes it's that they're green and they're just really like, listen, you need to get a little bit more under your belt before I can put you forward. And sometimes it's a matter of actors sort of knowing each casting director's process, which is huge. I mean, there's one actor in particular that I remember you had actually were like, you got to see this guy. He's really fantastic. And I remember seeing him a couple of years ago and being like, ooh, like I could sense that he was good, but I had never seen him before. And he was a little bit like too much for our market and our taste. And since then, I've seen him in more things. I've brought him in more because it's sort of like when you see that potential in actors, you want to keep bringing them in because they need to get used to your process as well as you need to get used to theirs. And the guy is freaking awesome. Like I would see him for every single role if I could. He's great.
Nice. Tell me who it is later.
I will tell you later. So it's a matter of that. You know, sometimes people really are green and they're so hungry for it. And you're like, I bless your heart for being hungry, but there's so much more work you need to do. Because for casting directors, we're signing our name. This is like us saying, I trust this actor. They're going to be awesome. They're going to kick some major butt on set and we can trust them. And I can't do that because my name is on the line if I don't think that you can, you know, if you're like wildly nervous in front of me in an audition, I'm not going to put you, you know, in front of Matthew McConaughey because that's scary.
Right. So that leads me to another question. That's something that I always say, actually, when I go to classes and things like that. I'm saying that everyone's reputation is on the line to pull this actor through this gauntlet. My reputation is on the line to represent and submit an actor. Your reputation is on the line saying, I stake my reputation on either the fact that this agent says that this person is good or you've worked with this person, and all the way up to the suits. You know, everyone's reputation is sort of on the line for one actor in one role, you know. And so it's kind of a lot, which leads me to the question, can you feel when an actor is in an audition and you can tell that their entire life is on the line? Like, how can you help them through that sort of like, this is the biggest thing that's ever happened? You know, do you ever like say, hey, can we loosen up? Or do you just move on? Or what do you do when you can tell that it's so important?
Well, fart jokes are always good icebreaker. I tend to, I've had this conversation like 8 times today, but I tend to work from a more human level than maybe it's my like Taos hippie upbringing or my like, when I was growing up, people would ask me what I wanted to be. And I would say that I wanted to be like a secretary. And much to my mother's like,
she's like, oh, where did I go wrong?
She was like an independent business owner. And I'm like, I just want to like make people happy. So I really like working with people on a human level. So when people come in and they're just like, this is the end of it. And you can tell, I mean, you can see in people's faces when they're about to leave and they're about to cry or they need that extra support. And I tend to think of myself as a pretty intuitive person. So when I see that in somebody, I'm like, let's go again. Take a deep breath. You know what? Get a drink of water. Is that your cat in the background? You know, it's a matter of we're all human. And especially in this post-COVID time, which I love, and we're all in each other's homes, it's sort of easier that way. It's like, you know, and people freak out because they're like, I'm so sorry that you can see my kitchen from this framing. And I'm like, I'm sitting in front of a bed. I've got a dog behind me, like licking his butt. Like, we're all in it. Yes. This is it. This is equality. Like, we're all here together. So it's just a matter of showing everybody a lot more grace than we're used to.
I love that. I appreciate that so much. How has the switch over to self-tapes, virtual EcoCast lives and Zooms, how has that changed your business? And how long do you think it's going to stay?
Well, we can see a lot more people in a day. And we were talking about it earlier. It's like for actors, we used to constantly juggle. Well, this person has an audition at this time, at this place. Or this, And even now with simple things, like I got to pick my kid up from the whatever, we can make that change a lot easier if it's minor time differences, because we can see a ton more people when people aren't shuffling in and out and, you know, competing for who can get in the bathroom because there was only one in the office, and you're not trying to like, you know, fuss through traffic or missing a red light, or you've got to stop and do this, or there's a car accident, you can't get there, and there's too many people in the waiting room. It's like, just be where you're at. We, excuse me, we had an audition 2 weeks ago, and the guy did his audition from work in the bathroom.
Whoa.
And we could tell it was,
Whoa.
and there's no, that
Right.
is not frowned upon.
Right.
I mean, it's like,
Did he do a good job?
he did
That's
a great job.
That's
He did
good.
a great job. It was kind of funny because like midway there, you could hear something. We had a guy about a month and a half ago. He had to do his audition in the airport. His plane was delayed. It was this whole thing, and so he was like trying to take his mask, and they're like, the people were like, "You need to put your mask on." So he's like, and they would take it off and do his and you could hear, it's like,
Yeah.
please put your pad in bags, no unattended bags. I mean, it was awesome, but it was like, this is the world
That's
we're
where we
living
live in,
So
yes.
what are you gonna
Right.
do?
Right.
I don't know if and when we'll get back to in person. I personally really like the virtual world because I'm a mom and I like working from home, but also because I can see so many people. I don't care much for self-tapes because I really do like the human interaction, and I think that's important. So yeah, who knows?
Yeah.
Only time, and who knows, right? I mean,
Who knows?
a year ago we were like, just a couple more weeks.
Yeah, a couple
we'll
weeks.
Be right back at it, and here we are.
Right.
So
Flatten the
it's
curve.
all 2 weeks to flatten the curve.
Right.
Curve. So
Right.
anyway, that ship has sailed.
Yes. Well, I appreciate you putting pants on in person tonight. I know you don't have to do that usually.
No, I don't.
So you didn't
Dress
have to.
up from the neck up, Carissa.
You didn't have to. I always say this, but we don't ever have enough time. What is your favorite thing about being a casting director? What's the thing that you love?
That's funny. I was just asked this question last night in a class. I love watching the progress of this community. So I know I've said this a million times, but I was born and raised in this state, and I went away and I didn't like where I was, and I came back because this is home. This is community. New Mexico, it has a totally different, weird energy. And I've watched this community grow. My first movie I ever worked on was the spring of 2000. So
Oof.
that's 21 years ago.
Wow.
And I remember doing auditions then with actors who are now,
Yeah.
it's just so watching that progress is like, it makes my heart grow, and knowing that happened here in my home.
Yeah.
Like these are my
sense of pride.
These are my people. These are my
Right.
neighbors. These are my friends. These are my classmates. This is, my family. So
Yeah.
I love that. I love watching our community grow.
That's really good.
And I
yeah.
get stupid starstruck. I'm watching a movie and I'm like, oh my God, that's Doug. I saw Doug. And then I'm texting. I'm like,
I saw you on the show.
I know him. So I still do that, and I
That's
love
good.
it.
Well, you're a great cheerleader for the actors, and
I love them.
yeah, I appreciate everything that you do. Do we have any questions or comments? I'm sure we have a lot because everyone wants to talk to casting directors. Let's see. Here we go, Kristen.
Okay. Oh no, sorry. Let's go ahead and do this one, and then I'll come back to the one.
Okay.
I clicked the wrong thing. He says a friend who is an MMA fighter who fought in the UFC is now getting into acting. Do you have any advice for folks with success in other careers who want to do acting?
Yeah, well, take classes. Because acting is so diverse and we're always reaching for sort of real, life experiences. Jump in, make some connections. The beauty of our industry, or our community, I should say, in New Mexico, is that the industry is so small. So if he knows you and you're involved in film already, have him do some indie work or do a webisode or show up on a webisode and just hang out for the day and do some stand-in work. And those little steps get you far in our community because it's a small community. You meet somebody who knows somebody who thinks that you're going to be right for this, and they refer you to that, and suddenly you're like, oh, I don't know, I've got this huge audition tomorrow.
And that's how it happens. And I want to add to that from my perspective. If you have a special skill or something that you're really good at or you're known for, make sure that you have some sort of headshot that reflects that. If you're a spin instructor, you need to have is there any spin instructors in the in the gallery? If you're a spin instructor or a bodybuilder or a something very physical, you should have photos up. You should have clips of you doing that, fighting, those sorts of things, so that we can market. When they're like, we need a real spin instructor, then I'm like, I have 4 spin instructors that I know of, and so instead of me going on Facebook and going, hey guys, is there any spin instructors out there? You've already got the photo, you've got the clip and all that kind of stuff. And so I always say, I'm answering your question, but I always say everyone is unique in their ability to, do certain specific things. And so show those things,
Yeah, showcase
market
it.
those things so that I can make my job easier to show you that I have 4 spin instructors.
And we do have those conversations
Yeah,
a lot.
yeah. We had one
two-
today. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, I'm looking for this.
Yeah.
So it happens a lot. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So good luck with your friend Malcolm. Any other questions?
Yeah, Jason would like to know, well, what is 1 or 2 things that we as actors do that you love in an audition, and what is 1 or 2 things that actors do that we should stop doing immediately?
Hi, Jason. I actually hate small talk, which is hard for me to say because I'm a total talker and like ask me a question and I'll go off for 4 hours. But in terms of audition, I do tend to think of it as a job interview. So sort of reflecting off what Cindy said, but you're there to impress us with one thing, and it's your ability to nail that role. So my favorite thing is when people are focused. If you need to be in character and you don't want to schmooze, I'm cool with that.
Mhm.
That's totally fine. And I probably will try to break your concentration because I'm like, is that a cat in the background or something? And you're like, shut up, I'm working. So the flip side of that is I don't like the small talk. I love it when you don't small talk. I don't like when people don't read the instruction on their EcoCast Live. Right now on several projects, we send out very specifically, we are going to slate in a wide shot first. Please be prepared for that. And I can tell you that about 50% of people come in with their framing this tight, and I say, I'm going to need a wide shot. And they say, ooh, I don't know that I'm prepared for that. I can't do that. I'm in a pretty tight spot.
Right. It was in the email.
It was in the email.
It was in the email.
It's in the email. And it's not me just being picky. It's that my producers have asked for that. The studio has asked for that. And I've tried not to do that with some actors. And I have gotten a finger wagging from my producers.
Why didn't you get the wide
We've
shot?
asked you to do this. So if you're not prepared, I can't submit you if you can't follow those directions.
Right.
And if you can't follow directions that simple, it sort of terrifies me to put you forward for a role and have to take direction on a set.
Right.
So
that's good. I mean, those of you that I represent, you see my emails. It says things like, I'm not kidding. Follow these instructions. I'm not kidding. And then I get a call. Well, Carissa, they can't see me. They can't, they can't hear me. And I'm like, what are you on? And they're like, well, I'm on a tablet on the Wi-Fi, and I'm like, no, I said, Ethernet, laptop, stuff like that. And so, sorry, you didn't read the instructions. So we didn't say it for our health. We had reasons for saying those things.
And I don't
Following
like
directions.
being blamed for those things because we'll often get, an email from an agent who's like, well, he said he got kicked out. And it's like, he got kicked out after the 7th time we brought him in and we couldn't hear him. And he tried to, I have a pile of Post-it notes on my desk right now that say refresh, volume, ? Chrome, ? External mic, ? Refresh, ! It's a pile. I just pull out. It's like, which one do I need right now? It's my cue cards. I'm ready with them. So,
oh my goodness. Pay attention to the instructions.
Please pay attention.
Do we have any other comments or questions for Kristen? I'm sure we do. For
one question for Mac. Hi Marie, what part did you find the most challenging to cast and why?
That would be the one that comes to mind at first is War on Everyone. And we had to find an overweight young child who was okay with being cursed at and insulted.
Wow.
And it was absolutely heartbreaking for me as a mother to be okay with the insults and the flavor of the project. But in the end, we found the perfect kid who completely understood that it was make-believe and it was a movie. And we ended up having to send him to Iceland for a week with his father for the actual project. So this incredibly talented kid who hadn't done anything and probably, who knows, had even left New Mexico before, got this opportunity to travel on this amazing trip. So it was like,
I think his dad had never left New Mexico, which made me,
it was it made my, and I cried many a tear over that particular one. Yeah. And then there was one actually on the Lone Ranger with the little kid whose teddy bear flies out the train and then they have to burst into tears. And they kept being like, well, no, we need these kids to actually cry. And again, I'm a mom. And they would be like, so this is what you need to do for the audition. You just give them like a toy. And then right when before action, rip it out of their hands. And I actually declined. I was like, I will not do these auditions. I'm sorry. Little kids don't know that stuff is pretend.
Right.
And I'm not going to screw with some kid's psyche.
Yeah. Shades of like abuse in the 40s with movies like telling the kid their dog died or something.
Yeah,
so.
no, I didn't play that.
Yeah.
Game, but
good for you. Thank you.
So
thank you.
No, there's no amount of therapy that will fix.
Bro, no, absolutely. Do we have any other questions?
I'm going to throw to one that is more of like a general question. Let me find it really fast. You kind of mentioned this at the beginning of the show. What are some current COVID protocols, and are there special casting considerations for out-of-state actors?
Hello, Mark.
Yes.
I emailed Mark today. It's nice to know that you're vaccinated. And honestly, I was thinking about it today. I don't know that we can ask. I feel like
might
that's
be a
going to be
HIPAA
something
thing.
that's going to come down the line. Like, you can't ask that. So maybe if you want to offer it up, like, hey, we happen to be vaccinated. The other thing is there needs to be a good time frame. Like, if you know that something's not shooting for a week and a half and you're out of town, but there's always that sort of gray area if you have a home or an address that's local. And I like to tell people that I am never going to check where you're sleeping. That's not my business. So if you say that I don't know what's going on.
I don't either.
If you say that you're in New Mexico because you can be in a 4-hour turnaround,
right,
that's your business. I am not checking IDs. I'm not. The flip side of that is if you say I'm in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and we're like, sweet, we need to cast this role right now, and you need
this
to be
afternoon.
in a wardrobe
right
at 6:00, and you're like, well, I just happened to have gone out of town on
suddenly,
and I'll be right back.
Right.
So,
right.
Got to play that carefully.
Right. Absolutely.
And the COVID thing is just changing on a
so
day by day.
Right.
There's just no telling.
Right. And I have to say, I've been telling my actors a lot, it kind of doesn't matter if you've been vaccinated, you still have to go through all the testing protocols.
Right.
Even if you've been vaccinated, they're still making you go through all that. So, yeah. So it changes every week, right? So we're still trying to figure it all out. Right. So it's crazy. Well, Marie, once again, not enough time to talk. We're going to just keep bringing you back. You're going to be a regular. Drinking with Marie and Carissa is great. Thank you so much for being here. We so appreciate you guys watching. Do we have any other final comments or anything that we need? Nope. Okay, great. So we're going to wrap it up. I just want to put in a plug for the Cardboard Playhouse quiz show that's coming up Thursday night on this same channel, the Box ABQ and Cardboard Playhouse. I am the assistant to the quiz master. I'm not the assistant quiz master, but Jason Stern's got some great categories. Please play with us, play along. It's really fun. You get some great prizes. And they can actually come. We're going to be at Hall of Spirits in Albuquerque at 7 p.m. on Thursday. And Jason Stern's got some good categories going on. So it's really fun. And we've got just keep checking for other shows that are going on. Things are slowly starting to be in person. I want to thank my studio audience for being here. Yay. There's literally 4 of them and it's amazing. They sound 40. Like there's 40. Yeah. So thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it. Like and subscribe to Cardboard Playhouse and the Box ABQ. We're on Facebook. We're on YouTube. Are we still on Twitch? Is that still a thing? We're still on Twitch. So many things happening. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time. Thank you. Bye. Bye, guys. Thank you for being here. Woo! What is that? That's my laptop.